From United Global Mobility and Business Travel to group moves, please give a round of applause to Beverly King, VP of Client Partnerships at AltoVita. And joining her is Seb Hammond, Head of Customer Success Operations at AltoVita, that will take you through the challenges and solutions of complex group moves.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So happy to be here. So good morning, everybody. So we're going to do something a bit of a different topic now. So going from bringing together business travel and global mobility into, as Joy mentioned, the group moves, the challenges. This is an area that is very, very much a rising area of focus for AltoVita. We've had a number of complex cases over the last months. And we wanted to highlight one particular case today, and we're going through this in an A to Z. So it's easy as 1, 2, 3, huh? We're moving a group of people, not so much. But we thought we'd give you a step-by-step and a few things to be thinking about as we go through the next 30 minutes or so. So as Joy said, I'm VP of Client Partnerships here at AltoVita. I'm based here in the UK, joined AltoVita a few months ago, and have a long background of experience in HR, global mobility and relocation management services.
Hello, everybody. I'm Seb Hammond, Head of Customer Success Operations at AltoVita. I come from a little bit more of a tech background, so my career has been focused around working with SaaS startups, and now moving into the accommodations industry has been thrilling. So looking forward to sharing a really interesting story with you today.
Seb's going to tell you how easy to make this with his step-by-step guide.
Yeah.
So how can we make this a productive, efficient, cost-conscious and great experience for the employees that we're moving? So let's go and dive in right away. So getting started, first things to be thinking about. Now, we're not going to go in very much detail for every single letter. There's a lot to get through in the next 30 minutes, but we're going to dive into some of the key things to be thinking about. So first of all, just taking the first step. A is for assignment. So Seb, can you tell us a little bit for this case study, this specific case study that we want to focus on today? What was the assignment? What was the brief?
Yeah, of course. So I was pleasantly surprised by an old contact of mine in Barcelona. So I'm based in Barcelona. And he came to me saying that his client was looking for a very special property solution, which was basically relocating 100 people from Turkey to come and work on the football club Barcelona redevelopment. So the Camp Nou, for those football fans out there, huge stadium being essentially demolished and then rebuilt again. And they needed some people to help do that. So we needed enough apartments, studio apartments. Minimum requirement was studio apartments per person for 100 people for 12 months. And I don't know if you know Barcelona well, but it's the kind of city that is more adapted to short stay hotels, short stay tourism. So yeah, that was fun hearing the brief, and then the budget was challenging. So that's where it all began, and looking forward to kind of delving into it. It was quite an interesting assignment. When it comes to budget, that's one thing that we can actually look into, because we do have a history of working on interesting and complicated group moves. And I know that Beverly has has some case studies here for us.
Yes, indeed. So we wanted to highlight one case study that we did recently, which was a group move into India, or in India for Hyderabad, Kolkata, and Bengaluru. So this client again had a specific budget in mind, quite challenging. But within AltoVita, we offered a in-house team within the India operations to support them. We were able to give them the GST invoicing, as Carolina mentioned this morning earlier in the kickoff. And we also negotiated favourable payment terms and cancellation rates, which is also critical when you're thinking about budget. It's not just the costs, but also the change management piece around it as well. So we're actually able to deliver with a cost saving of 15%, which was really, really significant for this client. So yeah, this is all possible, and it's also something that we're very much focused on. So back to our alphabet. So C is for culture, and as Seb already mentioned, for this specific client, the culture of bringing the Turkish into the Spanish was also quite significant, and we've got a few anecdotes around this as we go on. Development. So within many group moves, there's also a developmental piece to it, and this was definitely part of the proposition that we offered for this case study. So offering some opportunities to develop as part of the role that's offered, and what some of the purposes of the group moves is about. And then exceptions. It's really, really important, of course, to manage those exceptions in a efficient, well thought out process, having a technology that's going to help you to do that, track what the exception requests are, what have been authorized. And obviously when you've got a group, there's going to be a number more than you might expect normally. So getting into the details now. So F is for finding agents. And as Seb mentioned already, the market in Barcelona is particularly challenging. It's not, typical for these kinds of group moves. So finding the right agents on the ground that can offer the propositions, understanding and embracing the government regulations, what's required in terms of the taxes and registrations and things like that. So not just specific to this case study, but anywhere. These are things that need to be thought about carefully. Seb, what can you tell me about the housing list? What was relevant here in terms of this case study?
Yeah, so as it was, a large number of people, so getting 100 people's details, all of the needs, the different sort of varieties in unit types per persona, because we don't have just 100 people that are all the same, all kind of put together in a list that makes sense and like held on our side as far as the details of the booking itself. But then the housing list itself, as far as the options available, we really had to investigate what was possible, obviously around budget, the different suppliers, like we mentioned, the agents that were involved, and matching those different types of workers to the different types of property that were being budgeted for. Yes. As far as it kind of links through to the industry, right? So the industry that we're working with, which is the construction industry in this case. So when it first came to me, I falsely assumed that this was going to be, a bunch of hard hat workers that need a place to stay so that they can build a stadium. But that's not as simple as it is, as that is that you might imagine, of course, because it's actually a persona that is one that we are very used to serving, which is the corporate, more office dwelling, persona, where you have your different management levels and the people that are involved in the on-site office of that project. So it's 100 admin staff looking for things that typically serve anyway when it comes to our service corporate departments. And then we quickly started to understand that there were different levels, different seniority levels that were requiring different room types, and adding more and more complexity into the
scenario.
Yeah.
So J is for joint communication. So very typically when you have a project like this, it's important to be synced up between the client, the employees, and yourself as a provider, or for us as a provider. So part of what we are doing and what we can do is to make sure that we're putting the communications in the right wording, using the language that's required as part of the relocation support, and tailoring the emails and the notes that are coming out of our system to those individuals, so they can be branded, they can be tailored to different groups as well. So that's joint communications. So now we're going into getting the details. So K is for kitchen, right? No, not really. Key amenities. So not just the kitchen, but what are the amenities that are important? So thinking about what is required, what is desired, and what may not be necessary. So when we're talking about budget, what are the amenities that are not so important that we can disclude, so that those can help make the cost efficiencies better? For liability, making sure, of course, that all of the providers we're using have the right liability cover, insurance is in place, and so on. And M, modern, built for purpose. So I'm loving this picture. this is actually a picture of the property, one of the properties we used, right, Seb?
That's right, yeah. So this is from one of the purpose-built buildings that was actually completed in January. So this is, Barcelona does kind of push the envelope when it comes to different unit types and models of accommodation. In this case, because of the budget restraints, we had to look a bit further afield and delved into the world of co-living options. But this is not that kind of scrappy, thrown together, chopped up apartment that has somehow been forcibly squashed into including a co-working or something. This is purpose built, so you have like up to 6 individual bedrooms with their own private bathrooms, feeding into a shared living and TV room space. So people have access to those facilities if they wish to use them, but then more importantly, inside of the building itself, you have tons of facilities which are more in line with like a kind of hotel experience, probably like a 4-star hotel experience with a great pool, barbecue spaces, sports facilities. It's really nice, and it also has like a strong student side to it, obviously, because it's a bit more focused for the student and academia persona. If I studied there or studied in Barcelona and lived there at the time, I don't know. I don't think I'd get very much work done apart from enjoying myself. But yeah, it's really really impressive spaces that have been.
I certainly never had any kind of exciting student space like that when I was studying. So
Yeah, no
it's
pool,
really
no swimming
great.
pool.
No, nothing like that.
The local Lido.
In terms of the non-construction staff, as Seb mentioned earlier, so these are employees who are working on site in the small offices that you see in terms of the site works, but sometimes there might be necessity for them to work off-site. So here, having those facilities on site in the accommodation are also really important and can help them to be efficient at all times. And then what's relevant in terms of the on-site and having a 24-hour reception? And also that's quite unusual for a student accommodation, Seb.
Yeah, so I think because of this blending of different persona types and client types that they cater for, this also helps with security in general for students as well. So they have the 24-hour reception. It really helps with a big group like this. You know that all of the low to sort of mid-level questions and issues people may have can be instantly solved by going downstairs to the reception. They don't even require you to go downstairs, so you can be, reporting it through an app from your phone. And then you get the knock on the door and someone will come and fix your dishwasher or whatever it might be. So really really great service, and it's every day of the week. So it's like joyous to our guest experience team as well, of course, because then there's people aren't calling up on a Sunday at 4 a.m. for a bottle opener, so it's really quite helpful.
And then every detail being accounted for. P is for phased arrival. So a little bit different to the on-site. What does phased arrival mean, and especially with regards to this project?
Yeah, so you can never really get 100 people over from one place to another, all in the same plane and everything working perfectly. That's not really how it works. So obviously it comes in staggered groups. You'll have 10 people arriving one day, then maybe a few days later another group of 10 or 15. Sometimes there'll be solo people arriving because of delays or maybe visa problems or whatever it might be. So we want to make sure that we're providing that same service every single time, regardless what day they arrive, if it's a Monday or a Sunday, if it's a local or national holiday, because in Spain it's every 3 days we have some form of holiday. So so it makes things a lot easier. Jose knows that. So yeah, whenever you do arrive in Barcelona and there's a holiday, it can be taxing, with the travel especially. So that's been great as well. That on-site reception helps a lot with that, and allows people to just kind of glide in and get that same service, that same experience.
So Q is for quality, so understanding what levels of quality are expected and needed from the client mandate. R is for rotation, so as Seb said, there's often with group moves you're going to have rotations as well. So understanding and managing the logistics as they go through, to manage the ins and outs and the checkouts. S for seniority levels, Seb. So
So kind of going back to the different room types, really. So it's been a challenge as well, because as you can imagine, the concept of a co-living for, let's say, a senior manager who's used to different relocation properties. They would have maybe had their own apartment. They're not, maybe so suited to sharing with other colleagues, sharing kitchen facilities and stuff like that. So we were also able to provide that, give them studio apartments inside of the same building where they had their own kitchen, they have their own, facilities. And some of the more premium ones even go out onto that beautiful swimming pool that we saw there. So yeah, we were able to kind of make the more senior level relocation smile. Very flexible in the sense of being able to move people in and out. So very often in projects like this, you have like a senior manager come in for maybe a few weeks, and then they go, and then they won't come back, or they'll come back much further along in the project. So yeah, moving people in and out was something that was requested, and they said that the flexibility was there for it, so that was really helpful.
Great. And T is for technology. So of course you want to understand how does that get managed through the technology. How can you make the technology make this a simple, easy process, right? So do you have to fill out a form 100 times to get those people into the system first of all, to kickstart the process and get those accommodations searched for? So we wanted to showcase our tool for group moves, and this is kind of a very quick demo of what we have in practice, but AltoVita's developed a tool to make this very quick and easy, simple and efficient. So we use our AltoCurate technology, so I'm going to kind of start it off, but it's essentially adding a group request. It's going to start. This is in our AltoCurate, which we mentioned earlier. So add a group request, putting in your company name, any kind of ID, your file number and your reference. Choose the currency from a long list that we have available. If you're working through an agency, relocation company, you can select that, of course. The consultant that's supporting maybe within the company, or it could be your own internal team member as well. Camp New, so we're going to put in the address and it pinpoints it straight away on the map. Simple as that. So it really knows exactly where it is. You can then choose the check-in, check-out dates, or if you don't know the check-in, check-out and they're varying by the group, you can just put the length of stay. So easy as that. You don't have to put both, but just here we've put 90 days. And then you can select multiple units as well. So again, it's not a case of just picking one, but you can put multiples in. And here we have the 100 units are required. You can then specify a budget, so working to a daily, nightly rate or a monthly rate. You can choose to hide the prices from the employee. So as the client, the corporate or the relocation agent or the travel agent, for example, hiding the budget and then thinking about optional information like the property size, any commuting time. Do you want the property priority to be closest, or is it the budget, for example? What's the housekeeping requirements, and any other requests, any other comments? Once that's been implemented, you can then save that, and then that instantly then starts, that gets into the system, that starts Seb's team to start the work on procuring the properties that are required for the move, for the support. And then after that, a CSV file can be uploaded to provide all of the individual details of all the individuals that are moving with their names and their other details. So again, very, very simple, quick, but just by this one form, we can kickstart the whole process. So getting the final details now, set up for success. So U is for utilities. So again, making sure what are the utilities that are included and covered as part of the accommodation package. Making sure that we're very clear on the volume, especially when we've got people coming and going. Welcome basket. So making that personal. There may be specific requirements that are required from an allergy point of view, or maybe local cultural requirements we talked about earlier. The group themselves were Turkish. I think there was something that you did for the group, right, as part of the welcome, not necessarily the welcome basket, but part of the welcome. Yeah, so with support. A group, I mean, there are other factors involved, right? So you're not just welcoming a singular person that maybe is
if someone comes to the apartment for the first time, they get a nice basket and they feel a bit more welcomed. But when it's a large group, it's also great to be able to welcome them as a group and give them all the information and then a bit of an onboarding. So we designed essentially a welcome brunch at the location, where the property operator opens things up with basically kind of like not laying down the law, but like showing all the different sort of smaller rules and things that that everyone should abide by to have a great experience together. All the different sort of things that the facilities and what time is the pool open, all that kind of stuff. And then break it out into a brunch for all of those employees to finally sort of be together on site. All 100 of them are there, and then they're like, okay, now we're all living in Barcelona together, and they can sort of talk about their early experiences and just be welcomed in a better way at the space. So that was something that as well was like an added kind of
added extra,
like an added extra,
service.
like an onboarding service, so that we could welcome the group correctly.
So little details like that. Then X for exchange currency. There's not many options for X, so
X-ray.
Yeah. Let's hope no one has to do an X-ray to enter their accommodation. And Y is for yes. Why is Y for yes?
Yes, because you always have to say yes, right? Customer's always right. So we had multiple requirements and multiple questions, and can you do this, and can you add that, and so on and so forth. So ultimately it was just like, it's a high volume assignment. The answer is always going to be yes, but with the added premium, right? So they wanted, lots and lots of cleaning and regular this and regular that. So it's like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So it was just a case of negotiating with the supplier and being like, okay, these guys are very specific about certain things, and they put a new price on that. And then the discussion became more of a, well, maybe not, in some cases. So, yeah.
So really, Z is for zero in on the details.
Yeah, so just making sure that you have every little bit of information. You have your group, but then you have your subgroups. You need to know exactly what's been negotiated, what rate for every single service. Having all of that in one space, like we've seen in the group move tool, helps immensely, because you can just zero in on that information. You can pull reports very quickly. Your total spend for the project. You can then also understand what happened to John Doe in that particular day and that particular time, even down to escalations and things that maybe have bothered a specific client. We track it all, and it's all available, and it's transparently available to the managers. So yeah, really helpful.
And W could also be for wrestling, right, Seb?
Yeah. I kind of compared it when I first talked about it to the team at large, was that it was very much a bit of a wrestle. Let's say in certain parts of the world, and definitely in my career, I've had the benefit of negotiating with people from the different regions do things different ways, let's say. And in this particular case, this client, I can see Joy's laughing about it, but it was at times
a demanding client.
Yeah, basically I was in a headlock for about 3 months, but got out of it. We got a good price for everybody.
We've achieved what they wanted, of a very happy client and happy employees.
Yes. Exactly.
And after all of that, then it's time for the Zen, and it's time to relax, huh?
Yeah, kind of.
Until the next request.
Take a breathe before the next headlock. Yeah.
So that's a bit of a summary. We didn't plan that it was going to be the semi-finals today, and Spain would be in the semi-finals, but very poignantly with the football theme of the day. We have a few minutes for questions. If anyone would like to ask a few questions, we've got a microphone available. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you. Did you consider, by putting them all in the same location, that might actually take away from some of their cultural experience? Because people go on overseas assignments because they want to experience that city. But if you've got 100 people in the same location working together, did they tend to just stay there or do their own thing, or did they have that full rounded experience?
Yeah, it's something that came up in the initial sort of assignment brief, and that funnily that was one of the topics that when we first started putting our housing list together, our initial way was to actually offer 3 different zones in and around the center with like more like clustered. So you had like, 10 apartments in one area, then maybe 15 in another, and so on. Budget was one topic. So the budget meant that that was a more expensive option. So that was problematic for them. But they also specifically requested that they wanted everybody as close to each other as possible. So this actually came more from the client themselves, and they believed that they were able to focus the workers better. I think it's maybe more of an older school approach as well. It was like, you're all going on this project, you must all work together, and then if you have some time off, then do a little bit together, but then don't forget you're going back to the office tomorrow. So yeah.
Good question, though. Any other questions? Yeah.
Oh, I think it's over there.
Sorry, thanks for that. That's been really interesting. Just wondering how you navigated any potential immigration challenges. Must have been quite a tricky one.
That's kind of on us providing the service, getting everything in place, like we were saying, with like having the infrastructure ready for anyone to turn up late or the next day or out of sync, let's say. We didn't have any direct connect with any of those immigration struggles, let's say, that some people had, but we did have very good connection with the operations manager on the client side, who was always updating the rooming lists and telling us, okay, this particular person, unfortunately, their visa didn't come through, so we're substituting or we're changing, and so on. So the communication point was key here, just to make sure that everything flows as well as possible, so the property is also ready, because people can just randomly turn up, but it's much better if at least you get a few hours in advance, because then the room can be prepared better and everyone knows where they're staying and so on. But yeah, it's tough, because it does just put things upside down sometimes when you're like, okay, we're ready for 20 people, and then it's like, oh no, 15 of them didn't get the visa, let's move it to next week, and these things, so kind of part and parcel of the job, I guess.
That's where the communication is critical, exactly. And the collaboration. Claire.
Thank you. Really interesting talk. Thank you. I was thinking about the demonstrations that are going on in Barcelona at the moment, the sort of anti-tourism ones, and whether that will inform a change in security plans, or how you think that will affect operations for sending people overseas. Are they a little kind of conspicuous?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like I know it's been suddenly sort of raised more on a international level. I've been living in Barcelona for 20 years now, and I've seen this movement, grow and change and morph over the years. It is a bit more visible now, but it's been there for a long time. The biggest problem is more around that very short stay, low quality tourism. So people are very angry about that and the impact that it has. Of course, like the mid-stay and long stays have their own parts to play, but people don't really get targeted for coming to live in the city. The biggest problem is, I was saying this to a colleague earlier today, that the really big ones are things like the cruise liners. They come in, you're not even paying for accommodation to stay there. They get, thrown off the boat. They walk up and down Ramblas, they buy an ice cream, and off they go, and they like consuming the space, but not really giving anything back to the city. So that's causing a lot of anger. And then your very short stay, let's say that lower quality, I don't know, stag and hen, that kind of thing is really frustrating locals. And then the short stay also, of course, that short stay market means that a lot of places that people used to live in or would like to live in as residents, they can't, because it has a disproportionate value associated to it. And an apartment that should be worth 100,000 is now worth 500,000 because it's so rentable on the short stay market. But I think things are going to change very, very. The change is gradual, but things are changing. We're seeing differences, and rules and regulations are constantly changing. It's a challenge. It's a hard one, but I don't think for a 1 year long stay or longer, for these longer stay groups, they're not going to get the water pistol in the face, I don't think. Depends what area of the city you're walking around in, maybe, but yeah.
One more question, last one, I think, from Jose.
Yep, just in the front.
On the back of the last question,
Yeah.
with huge focus on traveller care and well-being, did you have any approach you used on this particular case? And within the A to Z, do you have a particular concept of traveller care and well-being that you apply to this particular group bookings or group relocation?
Yeah, so we'll provide like a bit of consultation, I guess. So in this particular case, I was quite heavily involved working with the operations manager for the group. I would highlight certain things like, okay, look, have you thought about this? How are people arriving and so on? But ultimately, we can't really influence it too much because that's outside of our area of expertise. We're not organizing buses and mass transport or anything like that. But yeah, it's a case of like, finding out also how long has that company or that project been on the ground in Barcelona. Are they aware of certain things? I don't know, petty crime and stuff like that. Make sure you tell your employees not to walk around with flashy jewelry or leaving their phones on the tables. All that sort of like local level knowledge. It's something that it really depends on the project, and if you feel like are they brand new in the city, then you have a different kind of consultative approach. But yeah, we don't really get involved so much with looking after that pre-arrival experience too much. It's as soon as they are through the door in the property, then we're there to make sure that they're given every opportunity to be well looked after.
Jose, I'd say A for assignment, so making sure the brief, covers all of that, all of those requirements. Key amenities, the K for key amenities, understanding what's important from the safety and security aspects. The modern, built for purpose, so again, you're going to have better control in place. Modern, fit for purpose, it's been thought out.
Security
it's very
and
well
safety.
thought out in terms of the security and safety. And then the on-site reception, as Seb mentioned earlier, is also important from that security aspect. There's always someone there to help them, to support them, to be present, to making sure they're not having people in the building that are not supposed to be there. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you very much. Great, thank you so much.